Welcome back, guys, to another video of Lord of the Mysteries. Today we are going to read chapters 18 and 19. But before that, quickly subscribe the channel because it helps me motivate and produce good content for you guys. And we'll start live streaming very soon as I get a certain number of subscribers. Like this video if you like my reactions and what I'm doing here, and share it with other people who might like series like Lord of the Mysteries, Shadow Slaves, or Kill the Sun even. So let's get started. Chapter number 18, which is called Origin and Cause. Upon hearing Klein's question, Dunn looked out of the window towards the corridor that led to the Canis gate. He took out his pipe, stuffed it with some tobacco and mint leaves, and held it to his nose. He took a deep whiff as his voice turned reflective and drifting. Only at home can I enjoy the beautiful flavors of tobacco mixed with mint leaves without any worries. Klein, do you know why the what is this? Klein, do you know about the creation myth? Of course, when I received primary education during Sunday school, we learned to read using the revelations of Evernight. Among them, the Book of Wisdom and the letter from the saints mentioned the myth of creation. Klein attempted to recall via the memory fragments of the original Klein. He slowed down his tempo and said, "The Creator awoke from chaos and shattered the darkness, creating the first ray of light. He then fused himself completely into the universe and made up all of existence. His body became the land and stars. One of his eyes became the sun, while the other became the crimson moon. Some of his blood rushed into the seas and rivers, nourishing nurturing lives." It feels like it is heavily inspired from Christian mythology or whatever you want to say. That famous line, "Let there be light," type of line. Let's continue. Klein subconsciously paused when he said that partially it was because the relevant memories were a blur and that the creation myth was very similar to the Chinese creation myth of Pangu. The imaginations of people from different worlds shared something in common on their myths and legends. Noticing that Klein was having trouble, Dunn smiled and added, "His lungs turned into the elves. His art turned into the giants, his liver turned into the treants, his brain turned into the dragons, his kidney turned into the feather serpents, his hair turned into the phoenixes, his eyes turned into the demonic wolves, his mouth and teeth turned into the mutants, and his remaining bodily fluids turned into the sea monsters, of which the essence was Naga. His stomach, his small and large intestines were the evil parts of his body turned into devils, evil spirits, and various kinds of unknown maleficent existence. His spirit became the eternal blazing sun, the lord of the storms, and the god of knowledge and wisdom." Am I supposed to write this down? I feel like it's going to be important in the lore building, but it's too big and I'm a little lazy right now. We'll get back to it if we deemed it necessary, or if it feels like we have to remember this, so we will get back to it then. His wisdom gave birth to humanity. That was the first epoch, the chaos epoch. For Klein finished the last sentence for Dunn, but he found it funny and ridiculous. As a keyboard folklorist, it was the first time he came into contact with a creation myth that was arranged in such great detail. It was so detailed that almost every prominent race corresponded to a particular part of the creator. It's like a children's song with children sitting in a row and eating fruit. Furthermore, it was not only mentioned in the canon of the Evernight goddess, the churches of Lord of Storm and the god of steam and machinery also had similar descriptions. None of them affiliated themselves or devalued the other gods. This either meant that the creation myth is real or hints that the few churches had undergone a long period of strife before compromising before the fifth epoch. With this in mind, Klein suddenly had another question. He asked with a frown. It feels problematic. Why are the internal blazing sun, Lord of Storms, and the Lord and God of Knowledge and Wisdom born directly from the Creator's spirit, while the goddesses isn't? In the relevation of the Ebonites' prehistorical records, the Ebonite goddess had only awoke at the end of the second epoch. Together with the Lord of Storms, Eternal Blazing Sun, and the other gods, she blessed and helped humanity survive the cataclysm. It was also known as the third epoch, the Cataclysm epoch. It was during that time the Mother Earth and the goddess of war appeared as well. God of War appeared as well. As for the god of steam and machinery, whose original name was the god of craftsmanship, he was born only in fourth epoch. In that sense, the standing among the gods seemed self-evident. The ones who were more ancient were more orthodox. It was extremely clear. This also troubled the believers of the Ebonite goddess. Then Smith held his pipe with another hand, and instead of answering, he returned with a question. Repeat the goddess's full title. Klein immediately felt like he had stabbed himself with a knife. He racked his brains and tried his best to recall. The Evernite goddess is nobler than the stars and more eternal than eternity. She is also the lady of crimson and the mother of the secrets, the empress of disaster and horror, mistress of calm and silence. Thankfully, Klein's mother was a devout believer of the Ebonite goddess when she was still alive. She would recite this every evening at dinner. Even though the memories of the original Klein had fragmented, not all was lost. What does the Lady of Crimson symbolize? Dunn asked with a guiding tone. The red moon, the moment Klein answered, he immediately understood. Then which part of the crater did the red moon come from? Asked Dunn with a smile. A single eye. Klein and Dunn smiled at each other. There was no way less impressive than the Lord of Storms, who was formed from a third of the creator's spirit. As for the churches of Mother Earth and God of War, they likely had similar explanations. However, the god of steam and machinery had been born too late to find a reason. Thus, their church had been weak in the past. The past plus years, it was only with the invitation of the steam engine that they seized the opportunity to truly be on par with the other gods. Then stroked his pipe gently. Humanity was born out of the wisdom of the Creator, so we have clever and extraordinary brains, but lack other magical powers. However, from the creation myth, we can form a simple but clear conclusion. Everything stems from the same origin. Stems from the same origin. Klein repeated the last verse. According to the conclusion, humans who are protected by the gods are able to resist the giants, devils, and the mutants. Gradually, they figured out means to obtain the powers of the Beyonders, that is, by using the corresponding parts of the evil spirits, dragons, monsters, magical trees, flowers, or crystals, and combining them with other materials to form potions. By consuming and absorbing the potion, one will gain different powers. This is common knowledge among mysticism studies. Dunn did not elaborate in detail and only gave a brief introduction. In this process, our ancestors relied on painful lessons to discover what if they were to consume high-grade or extraordinary potions. It would easily lead to tragic consequences. There are three possible outcomes. Which three? Pressed Klein curiously. First, mental death and the complete breakdown of a body. Every piece of flesh would become a terrifying monster. Second, the personality would be changed by the powers contained in the potion. They will turn cold, sensitive, irascible, cruel, and indifferent. Third, well done, put down his pipe and picked up a polcation cup and took a sip. Fermo coffee from the Paz River Valley is bitter, but very fragrant. It leaves us what the fuck I'm saying. It leaves us splendid aftertaste. Do you want one? I prefer coffee from the Fenaport Plateau. Of course, I have only drank it a few times at Welch's place. Client politely declined. Was the third outcome? Mental disorder, turning crazy on the spot, becoming more devilish than the devil. This is what it means by losing control. Dunn emphasized the word losing control. Without waiting for client to say a word, he put down his coffee cup and continued. After a long period of experimentation and exploration, together with the birth of the blasphemy slate, humans have finally perfected the potion system. We formed a tiered system that chains into stable progression paths known as sequences. The lower the number in a sequence, the higher the grade of a potion. At this point, the seven major churches each control at least one complete sequence. Besides, there are also complete paths that they have gathered over the past hundreds or thousand years. Blasphemy slate, Klein sharply noticed the term. At the gathering, the hangman also mentioned it. According to the hangman, the blasphemy state was the most critical factor of a potion system formation and completion. That seemed to contradict what Tun had just said. Those were things created by some evil gods. As for which era it appeared, where it contained, or what's so special about it, I am unsure of as well. If you discover any clues, you have to immediately report it to me. It deserves the highest level of response, said Dunn vaguely. I mentioned one of the types of losing control. I will now tell you the remaining four. Alright, client pushed the question of blasphemy straight to the back of his mind and listened attentively. Although humans have clear minds, they lack extraordinary powers. It is not absolute. There are always a few lucky ones, perhaps I should call them the unlucky ones. They are born with relatively high perception. It also means the ability to sense spirits. They can hear voices that others cannot hear and see things that the others cannot see. They have partial characteristics of beyonders. While done smoke, he looked at the empty air around him and watched clients stutter in fear. In other words, if they are half a sequence 9 beyonder and have fixed characteristics, or sequence 9 is the lowest grade in the chain. In short, they can only choose a corresponding fixed sequence pathways. If they consume other potions, the effects might range from mental disorders to loss of control or even worse, death. Got it, client nodded slowly. The third kind is similar to the second kind. Once you choose a sequence chain, you will be forced to go down that path. There will be no room for regret. If you were to consume potions from the corresponding sequence of other paths, there will be a high probability you will get mixed, unusual, and wrapped powers. But it is almost certain that you would be in a semi deranged state, sensitive and irascible, cruel and bloodthirsty, and silent and melancholy, melancholic. And there is only one such opportunity. After that, regardless if you consume the potion of the original path or potions in the present sequence, the only result is a loss of control. The outcome could the outcome could then be mental death. Alternatively, the body breaks down into monster or even transform into an evil spirit. As Dunn spoke, he lifted his coffee cup to take a sip. I'm getting like headaches right now trying to understand this shit. It's so detailed. It's so detailed. I will write it down off camera or somehow try to memorize it. It's just big brain shit that I'm not capable of understanding. Klein, who all turned alarmed and fearful after hearing this, fell silent for a few seconds before asking, "What about the fourth kind?" The fourth kind, this is the most common problem. When we consume potions to gain powers that originally belonged to extraordinary beings, we undergo an unnatural transformation. Therefore, we would more or less be affected by the remnant spiritual powers, while perhaps the symptoms might not manifest and are undetectable to others. It will definitely lurk in one's mind if one rushes to consume the corresponding potion ranked higher in the sequence before fully grasping the extraordinary powers the potion brings and eliminating the subtle traces. The madness will accumulate, increasing the chances of losing control. Dunn suddenly fell silent. After a short pause, he said with a sigh, "As per the internal rules of us Nighthawks, even if a teammate were to make a great contribution, they must have consumed the last potion 3 years ago and be examined before they can be promoted. Even so, there are still many who lose control every year." How terrifying. Klein drew a grasp as he asked, "Then what about the final kind?" There was no trace of smile despite Dunn's curved lips. "The fifth kind is the most common reason for a loss of control. For Beyonders, one's spiritual perception would be enhanced far more or less. The smaller the number in the sequence, the more enhanced their perception. What the fuck? The more enhanced their perception. Therefore, they would hear what others cannot hear, see what others cannot see, and encounter things others would not encounter. They are constantly met with mysterious enticements and illusionary bewitchment. Once they are overstimulated or have greedy desire, they will slowly go down the path of losing control." As he spoke, Dunn looked straight at Klein, his grey pupils reflecting Klein's figure. His tone turned bleak as he said, "The founder of the Nighthawks, Archbishop Canis, once said, 'We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against dangers and badness.'" Man, that line hits hard. For that reason only, I'm going to reread it. The founder of the Nighthawks, Bishop, Archbishop Canis once said, "We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against dangers and madness." And that's the end of this chapter. It explained very much of, you know, the power system of things, which I'm very glad. There is a lot of lore and world building in it, definitely. But let's continue. Let me update this. Let's read the next chapter, which is chapter number 19, which is called Sealed Artifacts. "We are guardians, but also a bunch of miserable wretches that are constantly fighting against dangers and madness." The corridor outside the window was sealed, its wall ice cold. The room was illuminated with bright yellow lights. Dunn Smith's deliveries echoed, sending blows after blows to Klein's heart. It left him temporarily at a loss for words. Dunn shook his head and smiled when he saw Klein silently. Are you very disappointed? Beyonders are not like what you imagine them to be. We are always treading alongside danger. There is always a price to any gain." Klein recovered from his shock as he answered with a quivering voice. It was true that he never imagined that the halo, extraordinariness, and the inordinary aspects of a Beyonder would have such hidden threads. Perhaps it was only because he was hearing a description without witnessing it firsthand, and that he had been sucked into the vortex with a peculiar incident already befalling him. Klein soon brought his fear, uneasiness, worry, and apprehensive under control. Of course, the thought of shrinking back was inevitable. It lingered around and refused to leave. "Not bad, very mature and rational." Dunn finished the last mouthful of coffee and added, "Also, Beyonders are not as powerful as you imagine them to be, especially the low sequence Beyonder. Why would we use 1 to represent the highest grade and 9 the lowest? Isn't this against the intuition and logic? The low sequence, where we often mention, refer to a low grade or high number. They are the starting point of the sequence chain. Alright, where am I? Yes, Beyonders are not as powerful as you imagine. A low sequence Beyonders power is no match for guns, much less cannons. They are just more fascinating and indefensible than firearms. If you have a chance to become a Beyonder in the future, you must consider what I said today carefully. Do not make a rash decision. Klein gave a self-depreciating smile. I don't even know when I will have the chance. He felt that he would not miss the opportunity if it presented him itself to him. Consuming the wrong portion or the higher ranked portion in the sequence could be mostly avoided. The major potential dangers was the subtle influences the potion had and what he experienced from having heightened auditory and visual perception. For the former, he could draw on the experiences from the generations of people before him, as long as he was not in a rush to advance himself or patiently grasped control over his powers. The chances of losing control were relatively low. Furthermore, he still had to resolve the potential problem that he currently faced. He had to understand the essence of mysticism and seek a way to transmigrate back. These were the underlying reasons for taking the first step. He did not aim for higher sequence spots if it was easy to lose control. He could just forget about advancement, stay in his original sequence and rely on knowledge to plan a way home. It was needless to elaborate on the potential risk back when Klein held the luck enchantment ritual. He was nearly driven crazy. The murmurings that nearly blew up his mind were still fresh in his mind. They were not unavoidable, but sorry. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm not. I've been reading for almost over than 1 hour, so speech impairment, I guess. It was needed to evaluate the potential risk, but when Klein held the lucky journal ritual, he was nearly driven crazy. The murmurings that nearly blew up his mind were still fresh in his mind. They were not unavoidable by not becoming a beyonder, therefore, it was better to gain powers that allowed him to defend himself. With this in mind, Klein felt the pros clearly outweighed the cons. It made his thoughts of withdrawal almost disappear. Dunn picked up his pipe again as his grey eyes carried a smiling trance to them. I cannot give you an accurate answer on this. To become a beyonder, firstly, you must make enough contributions. Perhaps tomorrow or the day after, you would be able to interpret critical ancient documents. Maybe you would be able to give us valuable ideas for one of our cases. Secondly, it depends on the arrangement of the higher ups. No one can be sure. Alright, I believe you should know quite a bit about Beyonders now. In the future, do not make a rash decision. Now, I will introduce you to our Nighthawk team civilian jobs. He stood up and walked to the door. He pointed in the opposite direction of the gate and said, "We have an accountant and someone else who is in charge of procuring necessities and collecting supplies handed out by the church and the police department while standing in as a carriage driver. They are professionals and do not need to take shifts, so they can rest on weekends. The other three civilian staff are Roseanne, Brett, and O'Neill. Their jobs include attending to visitors, cleaning the rooms, and writing case files and inventory registration lists. They also guard the armory, storeroom, and the archives, strictly enforcing the restrictions should someone wish to enter, take out, or return an item. Each of them has one day off a week, other than Sundays. They negotiate among themselves on the arrangement of night shifts and rest days. So is my job scope the same as Roseanne and the rest? Klein swept away his thoughts about Beyonders and tried to clarify his job responsibilities. No, there's no need. You are a professional, said Dunn with a smile. You currently have two tasks. First, every morning or afternoon, go take a stroll outside. Focus on the various streets that lead from Welch's place to yours. Klein was dumbfounded. What kind of job is that? Is that very professional? Dunn inserted his hand into the pockets of his black windbreaker and said, "After you confirm that you have lost your memories, we will close the case on Welch and Naya. Similarly, the diary of the Antigonus family had vanished completely. We suspect that you brought it with you. You might have hidden it on your way home, which might be why we did not find any clues at your place. This is also likely the reason why you were not there and chose to commit suicide at home. Although you were mysteriously influenced and have forgotten this piece of memory, the human spirit and brain is very fascinating. So, there might be residual traces. Daily might not be able to obtain them through her means as a medium, but it does not mean that they do not exist. Perhaps you will feel a sense of deja vu at a at, at a familiar or critical spot. This is where we wish to obtain. Got it. Client was enlightened. The Nighthawk's deduction of the diary's location was indeed reasonable. He was the only one alive among the people involved, only he had the time and motive to take the diary away and hide it on his way back. If you can find the diary this way, you will likely make enough of a contribution to become a pioneer. Encouraged, done indirectly revealing the importance of the diary. I hope. Klein nodded. Don't change the subject again. Secondly, you get a day off every week. You can decide which day it is for now. When you are not outside, go to the art armory and read the literature and canon books. This is a job for a professional historian. When you finish them all, you will have to begin taking shifts with own lead and the rest. Alright, no problem. Klein heaved a sigh of relief. This is not something too difficult. At this moment, Dunn turned his body halfway and pointed to the back outward swinging gates that were engraved with seven sacred emblems. This is Canis Gate. It's named after the creator of the modern Nighthawk system, Archbishop Canis. There is one under the central cathedral of every major city. It is guarded by former Nighthawk members on rotation. Inside there are at least two keepers who are sent by the church, as well as countless traps. You must not approach it under any circumstance, otherwise misfortune will befall you. That sounds scary, Klein expressed his feelings. The area inside is divided into a few zones. Stored within are certain potion formulas for certain sequences and other magical materials. It is also used to temporarily hold heretics, mutants, cultists, and members of secret organizations. They will eventually be sent to the Holy Cathedral. Introducing done, Introduced done in passing. Holy Cathedral, the headquarters of the Church of the Evenite Goddess, located in the Winter County, to the north of the kingdom. Cathedral of Serenity. Klein nodded slightly as though he was pondering over the matter. In addition, there are all sorts of classified documents and records inside. When you gain a higher clearance, you might have a chance of reading them. Dunn hesitated for a moment before adding. Behind the Canis gate, there are also sealed artifacts in the basement. Sealed artifacts, Client ruminated on the term. It sounded like a specialized item. Some of the extraordinary items we gather and retrieve are just too important and magical. If they fall into the wrong hands, it could cause immense destruction. Therefore, we have to keep it strictly confidential and watch them carefully. Even we can only use it under special circumstances. Besides, with that said, Dunn paused for a moment before continuing. Besides, there are some things inside that are very special. They had certain living characteristics which can entice the keepers. It would influence the surroundings, attempt escape, and cause catastrophic outcomes. They have to be strictly controlled. How fascinating, commented Clients wistfully. The Nighthawk headquarters had recognized these seals into four grades. Grade 0 represents extremely dangerous. They are of the highest importance and the highest confidentiality. They are not to be inquired, disseminated, described, or spied. They can only be seen in the basement of the Holy Cathedral. Dis- Described done in detail. Grade 1 is highly dangerous. They can be used in limited ways. Their security clearance is limited to dis- dissocian bishops or nighthawk deacons and above. The central cathedral of diocese headquarters like Buckland can store one or two artifacts. The rest will be handed over to the Holy Cathedral. Grade 2 is dangerous. They can be used with care and moderation. The security clearance requires one to be a bishop or a Nighthawk team's captain and above. The central cathedrals in various cities can store 3 to 5 artifacts. The rest will be turned into the Holy Cathedral or the diocese's headquarters. Grade 3 is considerably dangerous. They have to be used carefully. It can only be applied for operations that require 3 or more people. The security clearance requires one to be a former member of the Nighthawks. In the future, you will see the corresponding documents. Through the numbers, you can understand what they represent. For instance, 2125 means that it is a dangerous grade sealed artifact number 125. Okay, so it's a grade 2 artifact number 125. As Dunn went on, he suddenly turned around and returned to his room. He pulled out a piece of paper from the bottom of the drawer. By the way, take a look at this. 3 years ago, a newly appointed Archbishop lost control. For some unknown reason, he stormed around the various levels of protection and vanished mysteriously with a grade 0 sealed artifact. Memorize this photo. If you discover him, do not alert or disturb him. Return to report it immediately, or the chances of you dying in the line of duty is 1,000%. What? Klein received the piece of paper. There was no title on it, just a black and white photo with a few lines of words. Ins Zangwill, male, 40 years old, former archbishop, a gatekeeper who failed in his promotion and was enticed by the devil and was corrupted. He escaped the sealed artifact 008. 000 grade 0, the highest rank artifact. 08. Peculiar traits are: the picture depicted in Zangler as wearing all black clergyman robe with buttons on both sides and a soft cap. His hair was dark blonde and his pupils were so blue that it was clearly black. He had a high nose and his lips were clearly tightly pursed. His facial features were like a classic sculptor without any wrinkles. The most striking characteristics was that he was blind in one eye. The description of the corrupted is so detailed, but the only thing about the sealed artifacts is its code name. Klein honestly offered his first impressions. That's why it is at the highest security clearance. The search of the sealed artifact number 008 is only described verbally and never written in words. Even so, the description will be a little, said Dunn with a sigh. 08 appears to be a common quill, but it does not need ink to write, that's all. Dunn did not dive deeper into the topic. He tugged on the golden chain on his black windbreaker and took out a gorgeous pocket watch of the same color. He clicked it open and found a glance took a glance before pointing outside. I've told you all you need to know. Go to the armory to find O'Neill. Get him to arrange the documents that you need to read. He is no ordinary civilian clerk. He was once a formal member, but due to his advanced age, he failed to be promoted. His health is ailing, so it's no longer suitable for him to handle cases. Furthermore, he does not wish to become an internal keeper or rest at home. All he wishes is to accompanied by documents and records. And that's the end of this chapter as well. Let me make a timestamp really quick and then we will get on to the overall thoughts. So, both the chapters were quite a bit long, but one thing that this chapter provided me with are a great deal of information. Like, we got to know the description of the Evernight goddess, how the creation myth and how the world came to be, how everything came to be. Then we get to know how Beyonders powers works, how Beyonder lose control, multiple ways of losing control. Then in the next chapter we get to know about sealed artifacts and someone who archbishop who escaped, like the clearance level needed to use sealed artifacts and such. And I'm just waiting when I'm just waiting for the one moment where all of this comes together and sorry, epic moment happens. I'm just waiting for that. And till then, I'm going to wait, and I will record the next few chapters another day. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video. Please consider subscribing the channel, liking this video, and sharing this video to other fans of Lord of the Mysteries who want to watch someone react to Lord of the Mysteries. And I will see you in the next video. Till then, take care and goodbye.